Welcome to the Fleet Geeks podcast. We're here to help develop fleet and transport professionals. Do you want to progress and develop your skills and knowledge? We promise to bring lively conversation and debate around interesting issues and keep you bang up to date with changes in our awesome industry. The Fleet Geeks are a community of professionals, and if you enjoy the podcast, why not join the discussion for free in the Fleet Geek community over on Facebook?
Hello and welcome to today's Fleet Geeks podcast. I'm recording today a big question. I get asked regularly by operators and clients alike, those that are clients, those that aren't clients, about what should I do. And I just thought I'd give you a bit of an insight into the way I make decisions around the actions of the DVSA and whether the temptation to give it a good argument is worth it or not. So the question for today's podcast that I'm going to explore is it worth arguing with the DVSA if you're an HGV operator? Now, it's an easy question to ask. Is it worth arguing with the DVSA if I'm an operator of vehicles? And I think what I've done is I've come up with 3 suggestions of when I think it should be done, because I don't think you should be scared to do it if you think you're well positioned to, and 3 times when it's not worth it. And then 3 suggestions that I often make. Okay, so should we just jump into it? The thing is arguing with the DVSA, it's a bit like going to court. It's a bit like when you're thinking about going to, really sort of commit to potentially causing yourself a headache. Because the thing is, you should only really go to court if you're confident, you're well prepared, and your position is based on facts and evidence, not frustration, pride, ego, those kinds of things. Okay? So the big question that I'll often ask is this a frustration, pride, or ego-based challenge, or is your position supported by facts and evidence? Okay? So when it's worth pushing back, if the DVSA have made a factual error, they might have misidentified something during an audit. They may have misunderstood an event. They might have applied the wrong regulation. If you've got records, data, reports, logs, and a strong history, it may be worth challenging. Okay, so that's one thing. It may be worth challenging if there's a factual error of some description. The second reason is if the penalty or consequence is disproportionate. Sometimes a small issue can get treated like a major compliance failure. It may be that it's been misinterpreted and therefore the consequence or the claim is disproportionate. Okay, I think it's really important that if you've got a good record, if you've got a good backup, if you've got good evidence and a strong history of compliance, it may be worth challenging. Okay, it may be worth challenging because you've got the backup, you've got the evidence, you've done the work, you've done the yards. The third is if your reputation or license is on the line. Okay, for example, if something's leading to a PI and can affect your repute, you always need to consider getting legal advice and making sure you push back where necessary. Okay, so we need to make sure that those 3 key areas that are being met potentially if we're going to push back on anything. Where it's reputational or the license is on the line, I definitely agree. But I absolutely agree with making sure that you get competent legal advice. The second is if the penalty or consequence is disproportionate. So if you've had a minor issue, a minor indiscretion, and it's causing you a big issue and causing or being labelled as a major compliance failure, I think it's worth pushing back if you've got the evidence. Or if the DVSA have made some kind of factual error. Okay, those are the 3 key areas that I think it's worth pushing back. The 3 that I think when it's not worth pushing back is if you're clearly at fault and you've no evidence to the contrary.
Hello, it's Shani from Flagship Partners. We are really proud to sponsor the Fleet Geeks podcast. If you need expert advice or training for your fleet business, make Flagship Partners your first choice. We are really excited to announce the launch of our Transport Manager Academy with expert development for fleet leaders, We offer fully accredited Initial Transport Manager CPC training, CPC refresher, and operator license awareness training, as well as mentoring, support, and professional development beyond the qualification. Our vision is to develop elite fleet professionals.
If you're digging your heels in, and I think there's the impact of potentially damaging your credibility further. So one of the things that I always say is if you're at fault, it's best to just go, you're best off going along with it and definitely not challenging it at all, because you're clearly at fault, and digging your heels in is going to cause you further problems. Your attitude as such will be logged, and I think that can work against you both with the DVSA and potentially in the future with the OTC as well. Okay, so I think that's a word to the caution there. The second is if you're unprepared or you're emotional. Approaching the DVSA, if you're combative, defensive, can be poking a bear. They're more responsive if you're calm and professional, and even better if you've got a proactive resolution plan or suggestions. I think it's really, really important to make sure that we need to elevate ourselves as transport managers, as operators, to the very highest standard that we can. And if we're unprepared and if we're emotional, we're not going to be able to represent ourselves as well as we can do. So being combative, being defensive, not a great strategy for me. I think we need to be really objective, factual, and making sure that we argue our case in a clear and unemotional way. Okay. The third, I think, is very straightforward. If the cost outweighs the benefit, if you're taking a £100 fine that's going to cost you several £1,000s in consultancy and legal fees, it's not worth it. That's not the hill to die on, as far as I'm concerned. I think sometimes you can go, well, it's about the principle, but I also think that your sanity is a better principle. Okay, so those are the three key areas: making sure that if the cost outweighs the benefit, don't die on that hill. If you're unprepared and emotional, not worth it either. Wait until you've calmed down and you've got a clearer, more objective viewpoint. The next is if you're clearly at fault and you've got no evidence to the contrary. So it might be worth getting a second opinion on these things. Okay, and this is the advice that I give our clients when we look at it as well. So what do we do then if we have got a case to be pushing back? What can we do to basically ensure that we engage constructively with the DVSA? I think the first step is to make sure we construct a well-reasoned letter, laying out the case, making sure it's very clear what our position is, the evidence, the facts, and taking any emotion out of it. The second is to make sure we offer improvements. So there may be training, audits, new processes that we're going to introduce. The third is to invite a conversation. Rather than having a standoff and saying you're wrong and I'm right, it's better to suggest that we have a chat about these things in a professional manner. I think that it's important to understand that it may feel like examiners and inspectors, they're out to get you. But if you've made a mistake, we need to make sure that introducing a robust action plan to prevent reoccurrence enables them to work with us rather than against us, and it will help us to build a better reputation. So make sure, I think the three key elements to think about: evidence, respect, strategy. I think it's really, really important to make sure we think about those three key areas when we're preparing to go to war, go into battle. If we're going to go into battle, we need evidence, we need respect, and we need to have strategy. You need to respect your adversary. You need to make sure that you have the evidence you need and the strategy to make sure you know what you're doing. So there you go. I hope that's been quite helpful. I think, yes, sometimes it's worth pushing back if you've got the right information. It's worth pushing back if there's an error of some sort, if the penalty or consequence is disproportionate, or if your reputational license is on the line. It's not worth it if you're clearly at fault and you've got no evidence to suggest otherwise. If you're unprepared and emotional, I ask you to wait until you're not emotional and make sure you are prepared. And obviously, if the cost outweighs the benefit, it's just not the hill to die on. Make sure that you're well prepared, well-reasoned letter and evidence. Make sure you offer improvements, and make sure you offer and invite a conversation around those challenges you're facing. Okay. I hope that's been helpful, and definitely gives you food for thought if you're thinking about potentially entering into a battle. And if you're going to enter into a battle, I always suggest that you have the odds stacked in your favor. So hopefully that will help. And I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please share with your friends and colleagues too. Join us for free on Facebook with the Fleet Geeks community for transport and fleet managers. Fleet Geeks offers ongoing professional development, networking and mentoring too. So get in touch with me, Pete Rushmer, on any social media platform to find out more.